A year or so ago, I reviewed Beauty and the Beast on the NES. I was pretty new to game reviewing, but I didn't have my own style, so at the time I copied a few notable reviewers, and that video as well as a few others were very crude in terms of clarity and organization, like here for example.
Oh, and I also love how the Beast can run up the stairs so slowly like he's got cinder blocks weighing him down. Yet at the same time he can run down so fast as if he's got fucking skates! Why can't he run so ferociously like he did in the movie?
Yeah! God, I hate my voice played back like that. But still, it was a step in the right direction. That is a step towards the fact that it got released on the Super NES in the same year as its 8-bit counterpart, which makes us ask why did Hudson Soft bother to work on the NES version in the first place as gamers moved on? Not to mention that the Super NES version was released outside Europe. Whatever strategy they had obviously wasn't a checkmate. When I first came onto this game, I thought it'd be better than that Borefest I played before, but let me tell you, this game is anything but, and don't interpret my words thinking they're full of enthusiasm. You take control of the Beast once again to go through each level taking out paranormal shit and winning Belle's love before your rose withers. It's the same scenario, we've all seen the film by now. At least I hope everyone has at this point. God help me if I meet anyone that hasn't. The gameplay is nearly identical to that of its 8-bit counterpart, but there are some differences. For one thing, the levels you play through have a darker appearance to them, resembling much like the film, and the levels are played through much differently. Honestly, when you've played both versions of the game, other than different graphics, which in this version does look pretty good, and better renditions of the music from the film, though they can't beat the music of Aladdin on the Genesis, you'll find that it's merely the same game, but I highly believe this game should have been called Super Beauty and the Beast because it is annoyingly hard. The enemies are fucking relentless this time around, and they barely give you any grace period to recover, in addition to stubborn hazards. I know this is a Super console, but that doesn't mean it has to literally shove it into your face. As you progress, you'll notice how tenacious the levels get after dying countless times, thinking you're doing something wrong. Whatever happened to starting out smooth and then gradually getting rough? I'm up for a challenge as much as the next guy, but not right off the bat. At least give me some time to get used to the atmosphere of this realm before bombarding me with a blitzkrieg. I'll get to the controls and variations of the levels in a bit. I just wanted to cover the problems I've encountered playing this game, besides the difficulty, and I know you will too. As I've said, the levels have a darker tone, but sometimes the problem is being too dark. Then you won't be able to see what you're jumping into. I'm not against working with the source material, just as long as you don't get to a point where it's nearly impossible to see any lighting. Just like before, you are able to collect items floating around for health, points, and even invincibility, but you won't know how long exactly you're invincible for the moment you pick it up, and some of the items are tricky to get that it's not worth your time, which is indicated by your enchanted rose. In the beginning, you do get stuck with Lumiere again, but he won't wait for you. You have to catch up, and you can't always do this since you'll go somewhere else. Plus, he doesn't illuminate enough light for your surroundings. Once again, he's useless as you can get through the level without him. And take note of this because Lumiere is the only minor character that appears in the in-game. A few others do appear in those glass stains that correlates to the story, but the rest of the characters of the castle are not in the in-game helping the Beast out. Sure, Mrs. Potts and Chip does appear in the game, but that's only the purpose of calculating your score, which seems pointless since you cannot imagine playing this game with anyone. This feels like a missed opportunity for the developers to make the minor characters useful with some unique abilities that would translate into interesting levels, but aside from a couple of stages, the rest are just the same from the NES version. Before I keep going, the controls do have some issues that need explaining. You think with the Super NES the controls have been improved, but instead they're actually a bit worse as they're loose and sluggish, and that shouldn't be much of a surprise since Probe Entertainment developed this port. They feel very unbalanced in regards to the jumping and walking. To start with, the B button jumps and it feels heavy and awkward since the Beast doesn't go into any animation to show he's jumping. He just stands still and your hang time is very brief as your character is cumbersome to move around, even when you're walking. In most games, you can jump and then hit left or right and the character will move significantly, but this game doesn't utilize that. It's all about the momentum. You don't get a running ability, which means you can't make any running starts to jump further, which makes getting through some obstacles irritating. If you can't get any momentum, the Beast will just jump straight in the air with little movement. This is also one of those games where it uses two buttons for one command, as both A and X charges the Beast's roar until it's ready to burst. You mainly use the roar to free certain enemies to use as platforms to jump on, but the the enemies only last for a brief moment as platforms until they drop, and the troublesome jumping controls doesn't make things better. There are also platforms that will not be fully tangible until the beast roars at them, but when you first encounter something like that, you will have no idea to use the roar to activate them. Your first instinct would be to jump on them, and off you go. Just roaring at them to move is not self-explanatory. They should have relied on having the minor characters be around to give tips and advice of handling obstacles, since they remain unused. The Y button just slash and swipe with your claws, but it wouldn't have hurt to have a few more different attacks since you have to be up close, which can result at times you getting hit. Seeing that the hit detection is off, the walking is kind of slippery and it can affect how you jump depending on where you jump from. When you let go of the arrows, you don't stop immediately, which is a no-no in my book. To spare yourself from much unwanted fiestas, you can glance up and down using the up and down buttons. Still, they don't improve the main downsides of the controls. With the levels, they're just like the ones on the NES, but with much more detail as well as being stretched out. But even with those improvements, I can't get over how bothersome the game can get, and there is a way to ease the pain. If you're on a level that brings frustration to your fist, pause the game and then press left, Y, L down, resume the game, and press L and select at the same time. With that, you will have cleared the level. From then on, you can press L and select to skip a level you don't like or have already completed, but you won't get any points if you skip it right off the bat. The stage that has you climbing curtains is back, but you'll find it more aggravating than before. I will give credit for not including that stupid boss battle where you have to shoot T to defeat it. Instead, they replaced it with a dragon gargoyle-like boss with an annoying screeching noise and with only 3 small platforms to stand on, with the rest of the floor being covered with spikes. You also have to go through the snowy forest looking for Belle and defeat the wolves hunting her down. I do like the fact that they made the atmosphere much like the film rather than tainting the sky red like as though it was blood, and you don't go through a maze-like segment in the caves, as you'll be climbing in the trees, which is not as exciting as you might think, especially with all the enemies above and the frozen water waiting to kill you on contact. And like the NES, it has the same stupid-ass level where you have to catch the snowballs Belle throws at you. At least in this part, Belle resembles her character and not a fucking blue Jawa, along with the setting better drawn out and having Belle throw the snowballs much slower for you to trace their paths. However, they made one critical mistake in this part, and that's actually catching the snowballs. Instead of the beast automatically catching them like he did on the NES, you have to press the Y button at the exact time to catch them manually. This was such a deal breaker for me because I traced the trajectories and hit the button at the right time and I still couldn't catch a single ball. Why did they do this? How did they fumble on this and not on the other game? Once again, if you miss 3 snowballs, you lose a life, and with the game being anal about the moment, you'll have no trouble zipping right through them. At this rate, you have a better chance catching a falling anvil with your bare hands while being tickled by your estranged girlfriend. So what did I do? Skip to the next level, which is a library. Not much different from the other version, just paranormal books and all that. I somehow managed to beat that snowball level without skipping. Don't ask me how, I just did. Maybe I was desperate to accomplish something. Now we come to the end of the game where you have to get through the rooftops and avoid all the lightning, and I have to say, aside from the snowy forest, this is the hardest level in the game. Not only do you need to avoid the lightning, but you have to time your jumps perfectly, especially with the wind coming around to mess you up. Not to mention that it has that maze vibe again, and with all the bats swooping in to ruin your jumps. After that, you arrive to the final showdown. You have to keep jumping to the top and meet with Gaston. While getting there, you have to deal with LeFou shooting at you from the windows left and right, and because of how the jumping mechanics are, the small part will keep you busy, and a few of the jumps appear too far to execute, so you'll have to get to the edges. When you get to Gaston, you have to keep hitting him so he can fall down a level. He doesn't chase you like he did in the other game. You have to jump down and take him out without falling to your death, and Gaston is no pushover like before. He is vigorous to defeat. He'll keep on shooting his arrows at you, not giving a chance to move towards him. I shouldn't really be complaining much. At least it's giving me what I wanted out of Gaston from the NES. The best strategy is to get close to him as fast as you can and keep hitting him until he gets knocked over and will eventually fall to his death, and he will scream when he falls, putting an end to the game. At least the ending mirrors the film, and it's better than the one the NES offered. Even though this version of Beauty and the Beast is far better than the NES graphic-wise and tuned out, that's not saying a whole lot since you'll most likely find yourself beating the game with the code to skip levels. You won't feel like you've accomplished much on your own. In fact, this game feels a few steps away from being an accomplishment of any kind. This isn't a case like The Legend of Zelda: A Link to Past for the Super NES, where the gameplay is similar to the NES, but with so many changes and improvements made, you're not sure where to begin detailing them. No, this is a case where the changes made are very minimal. Diving into this game, I was expecting it to be completely different from the NES, but it's just nothing more than a reminder of the crap I endured before. With this version as is, if you need a challenge of some sorts, try getting through without using the code. I know some people have done it, but I myself don't have much patience for it, so I do recommend this game to some degree, but not anywhere above average, in which case don't bother wasting your time, as well as with the NES. Thanks for watching. I'm Riley Sky. See you later.